Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of Campfire Chronicles. If you don't know me by now, my name is Redundant, or Kelsey, depending on how you know me. Um, and today's episode is something that I share almost every year around this time. Um, and I'm going to give a huge trigger warning here. It does involve conversations about sexual assault, rape, and depression. So if those are topics that you are not comfortable being around, I totally understand, and you are more than welcome to join us back at the end for a story time. Um, but let's just jump right into it. Um, when I was in high school, about 2 weeks before my senior year, I had started drinking alcohol heavily. I was young and naive, and I didn't understand the ramifications of drinking so heavily at that age. I just wanted to fit in. I think we all kind of strive for that feeling of comfort and for feelings of friendship our entire lives. Despite me saying that I am antisocial, we still crave human interaction. Um, and I wanted to fit in with the friends that I had surrounded myself with. And they were already drinking, they were already partying, and I figured, why not? Um, Something that's really important about me and something that I've protected myself from all these years was my PTSD. And it all stemmed from a night 2 weeks before my senior year where I was raped by somebody who I thought was a friend. Um, and the majority of like rape or sexual assault cases are from people that you know. I know there's a lot of scenarios out there where they paint it that it's some unknown stranger in an alleyway, but um, the majority of these cases are by people the victim knows. And I hate to say victim because I survived so much after that with absolutely no help from my support system who I thought I had. And I talk a lot about revolving around my specific story, um, protecting your friends. And when I was in college, I took it upon myself as part of my healing process to teach a quote rape seminar that was invented by one of the higher education administrators, and they always said to tell your reason at the end of the um, seminar, like tell your reason why you chose to teach this. But I never felt like that was right because I think people need to understand that reason, that why, before they get involved with your content, with your writing, with your teachings. Because if they don't know the why, they may not take it as seriously. Um, that's just me personally, how I believe. And I remember, um, the years after surviving that traumatic event 2 weeks before my senior year, I was a mess. I didn't go to therapy for a long time. And it took me a decade to even attempt to talk about what happened to me. Um, I was speaking with a friend of mine on the car ride home from the Paramore concert I just attended this past weekend. And I was telling her how, you know, after I had been raped, I broke up with my boyfriend in high school. And I always make a joke about it now because of the way I did it, mostly because humor is the way that I cope with things. Um, and I laugh at awkward situations and bad situations because I don't know how to properly react, and it's just a gut reaction at that point. Um, but I broke up with my high school boyfriend because of this event, and we were talking about how like the reasons why, and I just felt that I wasn't mentally in a spot that I could share myself with somebody. And he doesn't know this. He never knew this. He probably thought I just broke his heart for no reason. And we had only been dating a short while, about a year, and but we had known each other since we were kids. And I completely avoided him my entire senior career, and then at the end of senior year, I apologized for how I acted. And I was like, I hope that maybe we can still be friends because I feel like I ruined any chances of anything else. And I took a lot of the blame for surviving my rapist. Like, I took so much blame on myself. And I remember when I was at this college seminar, one of the things that was in this pamphlet, and I don't know how else to take this other than victim blaming, but this particular point stayed in my head for my entire life. And in the little pamphlet, we're reading through it, right? We're getting trained on how to teach this course. And it says that rape is not one person's fault. It's both parties' fault. And it said you wouldn't blame somebody for you getting ejected out of the car if you didn't have your seatbelt on because you chose to not put your seatbelt on. And I read that line and felt such immense guilt for what I did, for what I didn't do. And I carried that guilt for years because that one statement made me feel like I could have prevented everything. And when I brought this up to the person who wrote this program, who got the program trademarked or copyright so that nobody else could steal this program for her, they would have to pay her for it. When I brought this up, that this is victim shaming, she repeated the line to me. And I said, that is so unfair to do to anybody who has survived sexual assault or rape. And she said it was necessary. She said it was necessary to tell people that this is preventable. At the end of the day, somebody like my rapist is going to do what they're going to do regardless. Regardless. In my case, I was heavily intoxicated. I couldn't defend myself. I never gave consent. And in her eyes, I needed to take responsibility for what I did in that entire scenario. This was coming from a woman, and women experience the brunt of sexual assault and rape between like the college ages. So I had to sit there holding myself together, trying not to have a PTSD attack in the middle of this training. And only a few people at that point in my life knew what I had been through. And I told my partner, who I was going to be teaching the course with, because after the training was over, I went back to my dorm room. I was a resident assistant for the summer students who were coming in from like overseas. I went back to my dorm room and slipped into some, I don't even know what to call it, but I slipped into some place that I did not need to be mentally. And I can feel myself falling back into that now that August is around the corner. There's a lot of other things that have happened in August that have really made that entire month just sour for me. For those of you who don't know, I had a miscarriage with our first child, and their due date was August 5th. So it's right off the rip, the start of the month is just not good. And I'm just haunted by memories of things that I could have done, should have done. And it brings me back to that place that I have strived so hard to get away from. This dark corner of my mind that I revisit when I don't feel worthy enough to be alive still. There's so much of me that has grown since that awful night. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that because I was not going down a good path. My own father doesn't even know that this happened to me because I kept it a secret because I felt the best way to deal with it was to stuff it down. After my mother passed, that's exactly what my dad did. So that's all I know is how to not cope with emotions, with depression. I just know how to not cope with it. And after losing my mother, losing my innocence to these people who I thought were my friends, there's a place I go within myself that shuts all those feelings off. But it also makes me just not strong enough to keep going on each day. And that feeling always creeps back up as July starts ending. It starts creeping back up into my head. And this entire podcast is about sharing stories to bring us closer together because I don't think that enough people talk about their life experience, whether it's good or bad. I don't think they talk about it enough. And the more that we tell our stories and the more that we talk about what's happened to us, I might be able to help somebody make a different choice than I did. And if anything good can come out of what happened to me, I want it to be that. I want somebody to make a different choice than I did. I don't want people to have to feel like they need to fit into a group by drinking alcohol to the limit of borderline alcoholic. I don't think anybody should ever have to feel the way I did for so long. And also, I hope that this teaches somebody somewhere to look out for your friends. Because I didn't have the luxury of having friends look out for me that night. And I thought that somebody would have said something. And the only person who saw what was happening didn't believe me. And they let my rapist explain to them what happened and believe them over me. And that kept me quiet for so long and kept me in that dark place that I go for so long. I mean, the amount of times that I got blackout drunk in high school, just to feel something, just to feel happy, just to feel what it was like to be happy, was terrifying. One specific night I remember walking on this bridge. It's about a 30+ foot drop to the water. And I was hanging out with some friends that I hadn't seen since the entire incident happened, but they weren't from the same town that it all happened in. So I felt relatively safe. And we were drinking by this bridge near my hometown. And I was walking on the guardrail, like almost like a balance beam, after drinking about 3/4 of a bottle of tequila. And I thought, what would it feel like if I just fell? right now. And apparently I had started to fall over the edge when I was thinking that. And a friend of mine grabbed me off the guardrail. Um, and in that moment, I remember thinking, why didn't you just let me go? But I laughed instead. I laughed to pretend that I was not thinking that. And I laughed so that everybody else could, ease the tension that that entire situation brought about. Um, and I think it's important to take a second and realize that you don't know what battles somebody is fighting. And if you can take a step into somebody else's world, even for just a moment, and help them, truly help them when you see something that seems off, I think that's important. And I'm not saying sacrifice your mental health to do so, which is why I broke up with my then boyfriend, because I felt that I couldn't give any other part of myself to him. I felt like a huge chunk of me was just rotting, decaying flesh that was hanging on by a thread. And if you're ever in a relationship, you don't want to do that to another person. I would become so codependent on this man. And I even did that to my own husband. And I feel awful for that. When August rolls around, I just think about the months up to a year that I hung on to him as my grounding point. And he may not have thought of it that way, but I definitely did. And when I was in high school recovering from all this, I was even worse. And I took a step back and I said, I can't bring myself into somebody else's life and make them my crutch. Since then, I've gone to therapy. And while the month of August is still hard to get through, it's bearable. And the only way it's bearable is by talking about it and by writing about my experiences. And I'd like to be able to read you a snippet from a piece that I've been working on since this all has transpired. I don't have a title for this piece yet, but this is going to be your story time for tonight. So I hope you guys enjoy whatever part of this little poem, I guess you could call it, I wrote. Here goes nothing. I moved 1,000,000 miles away from you, and all I hear at the end of the day is your voice screaming I should stay. Some people may think this is a love song. I can't begin to say how wrong they are because I never knew what love was thanks to you. The month of August has come and gone, and here I am inside the walls of my own head, hoping of one. A piece of me lies on the floor of that bedroom where you're from. In my nightmares, I'm not alone. I've got your grip on my wrists to remind me. If there's anything I hope that you take away from this podcast, I don't need pity. I don't need anybody to feel sorry for myself. But if there's anything that I can pass from this podcast, is to check on your friends. Check on your friends, your family, the people that you care about in your life. Keep them safe. Because despite what they say, despite them repeatedly reminding you that they're fine, you checking on them is keeping them going. So until next time, my friends, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and I will catch you guys back here at the campfire.